a school that has a coach now that's done a tremendous job on social media is Colorado. So they made some noise today, but they didn't really land a lot of stud. Deion definitely did not have so far. I mean, maybe he gets Cormani. He did not have that Travis Hunter level signing day flip. How do we judge what Colorado did today?
I mean, I said this on Josh Pate's show last night, Late Kick, and I said Colorado football can clip me for all their socials because I said I don't think it's going to be this super exciting day. And Prime obviously coached in that bowl game classic on Saturday, and then he took the private jet to Boulder, and they were going to have the biggest recruiting weekend ever. Well, none of those kids ended up at Colorado. We had Malachi Coleman, top 247 athlete. He signs with Nebraska and Matt Rule. You had Vakari Swain, big time kid out of Georgia, two-way athlete. I think he signed with South Carolina. I hope I'm right on that.
Jordan will correct us in the chat if wrong.
And then Bo Hewley, Traitsy offensive lineman from Georgia. He was out there. He sticks with Georgia. Tasuli Akana, he visits. So all these kids visit, but none of them stuck. And to me, it gets my head thinking, was this the right spot for Prime? I think maybe if he's at any of these other locations, it's easier for some of these kids, right? Boulder, at the end of the day, is like a ski town, right?
It is.
It's far away. A lot of kids have never been there before. So, we'll see what it looks like, how he finishes this cycle. Yes, Cormani could join it. We still got a February signing period. They're going to be great in the transfer portal. And then I think we judge him on what happens in the 2024 cycle.
I think we judge him based on the transfer portal because I think that's what they need the most. I mean, we're talking about all these issues with high schoolers, that jump from, high school to college. That roster is one of the worst in all of college football. I mean, and he addressed that in his, now famous meeting. He needs to see turnover, but he also needs guys that at least have a baseline of, okay, they've played somewhere and they've made it and they've produced somewhat. And I think that's how he should judge Deion, because I think that's going to be the key to a turnaround. And it's similar to what Mel Tucker did at Michigan State. Michigan State had a tradition. I mean, they were winning Rose Bowls just a few years before Mel Tucker gets over. Colorado's been irrelevant for 20 years. I don't know. I'm curious about the Boulder thing because, Jackson, I guess it's in the South, so you're closer to home. I think, but now I've played in the NFL, I've lived across the country, but I have to go back to my mind as a 17 or 18-year-old. I didn't choose to go to Michigan because it was too cold. I didn't choose to go to Washington because it was across the country. I stayed in state because it was comfortable, and I think that's what a lot of the decisions are based on. So I think that could impact. Deion.
He got Travis Hunter, and I think Travis Hunter wanted to play for him.
Yeah,
and I think Travis Hunter was all about the HBCU movement. I think, and I covered a Jackson State game when they played Florida A&M in the Orange Bowl Classic. I saw the operation up front, but there really wasn't a ton of other high schoolers that jumped in the boat. So I just think it's something to think about, that Boulder location. Now, if you put him at USF, I think they would have had a monster day. Put him at Cincinnati, I think they would have had a monster day. But maybe it's a little bit more difficult than we initially thought when he took that job to get kids to Colorado.
I also think, too, I still don't know. Based on the, my experience, is recruiting is relational, right?
Yeah.
And you have coaches that spend years developing relationship with players. And we've talked about this a little bit on the pod. The first-year coach, what a struggle it is in 2 to 3 weeks to pull together any class, let alone the challenges you're doing at Boulder. I think this is just kind of almost highlighting how hard it is. Even if you're Deion, even if you're Prime, you've got this brand, it's still going to be tough. And you can't just say, you can't just call up, hey, I'm Prime, and the kids will be ready to go. It's going to take some time.
Because relationships still matter in the NIL era.
Right.
And look at what Alabama did today. Like, kids want to play for Saban. And don't get me wrong, kids want to play for Prime, but Saban also has the resume with all the first-round draft picks and built by Bama. I think that stuff still matters to some families.
I agree with your point on USF, but I would agree with it more if Colorado had not waived their transfer restrictions. I think that's going to be so huge for Prime. I know the prior staff had a lot of problems getting kids in. Colorado would not stamp them academically for transfers. And now it appears, just based on the number of kids that Colorado's offering for transfer, I think Prime is going to clean up in the portal.
Yeah.
And the higher you go, the harder it is to improve your roster via the portal, right? Like Georgia took 0 players in the portal last year because their roster, that is tough to crack.
Yeah.
Michigan, I think, has 1 or 2 transfer portal starters. Ohio State has 1 or 2. TCU has 6. Colorado just went 1-11.
Right.
Look, part of the beauty of what Deion did at Jackson State was he took a lot of transfers. After Shedeur Sanders, his son, who is going to Colorado, by the way, the quarterback, got wrecked in last year's Celebration Bowl, Deion had come out and said, hey, we're going to improve this offensive line. We're going to get some protection for Shedeur. He went out and got guys from like Louisiana Monroe, some of which who didn't even start, Louisiana Lafayette, and those dudes were really good in the SWAC.
Well, the defense, the PFF did their HBCU top graded out defenders, and like Travis Hunter was one of them, but like Jackson State had 4 other guys on the list. Like the defense was good, and it was a ton of transfers from other spots.
And so I think if you have a 1-11 roster, I'm not saying that improving that team is easy, but I'm saying the number of players who could make Colorado's roster better are there's a large number of those, right? And so I think you could easily go from 1-11. And I know they have a difficult schedule. I think they play Nebraska, Colorado State, and Nevada, I think. So that may help. But you could win 4 or 5 if you really run good, get lucky, maybe win 6 ball games. That's going to get Deion a lot of hype around him. Look, man, I took a 1-11 team to a bowl game or damn near a bowl game. There's an avenue here that he has a much better signing day on 2024 thanks to the work that they're going to do in the transfer portal over the next couple of weeks and then also in the post-spring portal.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I had low expectations for Deion. I think the portal is more important than the transfer portal.